Let me go ahead and admit something to you that I've actually never said out loud before. You don't need a fountain pen. Might sound weird coming from me, quite the collection, but the truth is that if you want to enjoy fountain pen inks, but you don't want to get into fountain pens themselves, in today's video I'm going to introduce you to 4 different types of pens that you can use inside of your planners, your bullet journals, or however you want to enjoy your ink without ever having to worry about a cartridge or a converter or anything like that. The first tools that I'm introducing you to today are Kakimori Nibs. Kakimori is an amazing brand that has all types of different inks and fountain pens and all this kind of good stuff. But my favorite thing from them have to be the Kakimori Nibs. These are different nibs that come in different sizes and shapes that allow you to enjoy fountain pen ink without ever having to worry about putting them inside of a pen. These nibs come in a lot of different styles. They come in stainless steel, brass, as a glass nib, as well as just a regular calligraphy pen nib. And all you're doing is putting these nibs on top of nib holders, dipping them in your ink, and then writing inside of your notebook or on pieces of paper. Kakimori is a Japanese stationery brand, and they make these amazing dip pens that almost looks kind of like a bullet. And as you can see on this nib, it has channels that are built and milled right into the metals that are on here. And what's so important about these channels is that's where all of the ink holds onto. So you don't actually have to dip your pen a lot because it all kind of gets stored inside of these channels as you're writing with it. One of my favorite parts of this nib is actually that depending on the angle in which you write, you're going to get very thin lines or very thick lines. If you want to look for something a little bit more refined, they also have an absolutely beautiful glass nib. We're going to talk more about glass dip pens in just a moment, but I wanted to show you how well this nib works. And like I said before, you're just really attaching these to a different holder so you can really express yourselves in different ways in different holders versus worrying about the nib. That's always going to be consistent. And if you're looking for more of a classic type nib, then you also just have your calligraphy nib as well. The big difference here is that you don't have the feed or anything giving that ink, so you are dipping this more than you would with another pen, but still getting that beautiful fountain pen-ish look. If you're looking for something a little bit less expensive than those pen nibs, they can run a little bit higher. Let me introduce you to the Hocoro. Similar to the Kakimori nibs that we just saw before, these are nibs that you put on top of a holder, but everything here is made out of plastic. And what's also really cool about these nibs is that when you're not using them, they actually store on the inside of the pen. What I also like about these nibs is that they're interchangeable, so I can have something like a fude nib here. I can also have something very thick like a stub nib, or go with that classic fine tip nib as well. These all work exactly the same. Dip them into the ink of your choice and then you can write with them. What's really cool about these pens too is that there's actual additional feed that you can get that adds onto the bottom of this pen, which extends the length in which you can write with it. Without the nib, you can maybe write a handful of lines, maybe half a page, but with the feed on there, it holds on to more ink, which allows you to write a lot more and even cover the entire page if you're interested. If you're looking for other options to play around with ink inside of your journals and your planners, or even just to write with, you might want to also consider glass nibs. Similar to the nib that we saw before in that Kakimori pen, these are all pens that have glass nibs already built into them, or the entire pen itself is actually made out of glass. The glass tip style also ranges from long and thin, more of a teardrop shape, and even really beautiful ones that are made out of like Murano glass. One thing I have to tell you though about glass dip pens is that you have to be very careful with that tip. Since it's glass, if it drops, it can totally break. But if you take care of it, you keep it in a nice spot, these can be really fantastic options for using ink inside of your planners and journals. And the last pens that I want to introduce you today are refillable fine liner pens. I actually have 3 different brands here that all do the same exact thing. We have ones from Kuretake, we have Kakimori as well, and also the extremely popular Tom Studio. Regardless of the brand, all of these pens work the exact same way. Inside of these pens, you're going to find an ink reservoir. This is similar to markers and things like that that you might already have at home as well. What's cool about these pens is that you can fill these with whatever fountain pen ink you want. They don't always work with shimmer inks. Really, it's going to be more around solid colors. But what I love so much about this is that it gives you so many different options to use and reuse these over time. All you have to do is just dip the reservoir inside of an ink. You can watch as that ink gets sucked up inside of the reservoir. And then you put it inside of your pen and then you just start writing with it. Very similar to using any type of marker or a regular ink gel pen, but really what's cool about it is you get to custom fill it with all the different options that are out there when it comes to pigment and water-based fountain pen inks. The Tom Studio pen has become one of my favorite over time, especially with the Duo, because I can fill it with 2 smaller reservoirs and I have 2 different colors at the ready at all times. If you're interested in checking out the full review on that pen, I have a full video up and I'll link that in the descriptions below. So those are all of our options if you're interested in fountain pen ink, but not really to dip your toe, pun intended, inside of the fountain pens themselves. If you'd like to check out any of these products, I'll go ahead and link all of them down in the descriptions for you below, as well as some of the inks that you saw today as well. There are so many different brands and types that you can get out there. And if you don't want to buy anything full out, maybe head over to one of your local stationery stores and see if they have ink samples available. And some brands out there even have little tiny 5 milliliter ink bottles that you can buy. That way you don't have to put a whole lot of money into this if you're not quite sure if you want to go full in. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below, especially if you haven't bought into the fountain pen space but are interested in inks. Did you see anything here today that you think that you might like, make you feel a little bit more comfortable with getting into fountain pen inks? Or if you are a fountain pen fan and love all of this good stuff, let me know your favorite pens to use and maybe that'll help someone else in the comment section below. As always, thanks so much for hanging out today and I'll check you next time. See ya.